What's up, y'all? We're back again today. Something a little different, perhaps, or not actually any different for me, but maybe different than what you are expecting on this channel. We're going to do a walk around on this 2003 Kawasaki ZRX1200R. Definitely one of my favorite bikes I own. I actually didn't build this particular bike. I've had it for a couple years now. But this is my fourth one of these I've had over the years. I've had the 1100, a couple 1200s, and I sort of traded up, and then this thing popped up on my radar, and I said, that's the one I want. So I got this one, and really, there's nothing left to do on this besides ride it. It's got everything basically done that you could want to do to one of these things. I mean, really, they're great bikes, like just stock. They're really fun, good riding, upright, semi-naked, torquey-ish for a sport bike. You know, it's a muscle bike. So it's obviously it's a retro version of a Z1000R. This particular paint color was, well, I think in 03 they didn't call this the Lawson replica. They might have, but anyway, this is supposed to be sort of the Eddie Lawson replica color. He raced a 1000R, and this color is actually slightly different than the typical Kawasaki green, but nonetheless, it's a sort of retro version of that bike. And now this bike's basically retro. So this is like, you know, you had the 80s version, you had this, you know, late 90s, early 2000s, and then they've now done like a Z1 RS, which is another sort of version of a KZ, early KZ, even more, it's sort of a newer version of what this kind of was. But this is cool because it's still twin shock. It's still a steel frame. It still has the same sort of body lines and proportions as the original bikes. Man, these things are just so fun to ride. I mean, this one in particular has so much power. Like this thing, if you have a new sport bike, this might hurt your feelings because it's, I mean, everything's done. The motor's done. Every possible thing you could basically do to this thing is done, aside from hanging a turbo off the side of it, which that may be a whole nother video at some point down the road with a different bike. But nonetheless, yeah, I mean, look at the components. They're heavy in terms of sport bikes, but, you know, if you're used to Harleys, man, this thing doesn't weigh anything. This thing's light compared to a Harley. But it still rides upright. It's funny because for me doing a bunch of ZRX and FXR stuff, the similarities between the frames is actually kind of ironic with the triangle piece on the side and the kind of, this has basically a 3-tube backbone, like how a lot of the older KZs and stuff did. But you know, I think a lot of what was happening when they designed FXRs, these bikes, not these, but the KZs and Z1s and stuff, were sort of at the top of the engineering spectrum, and basically, hey, let's use that sort of game plan, let's use that technology into these FXRs. Of course, those are rubber mounted, these are not, but in terms of just frame geometry, it's definitely a thing. And that's probably a lot of the reason why a lot of the Harley crowd didn't take to FXRs in the beginning, because they said it looked too much like a Japanese sport bike. The frame, they didn't like, it wasn't traditional for them. But, you know, tradition's out the window. I mean, I love Harleys, but if you know what I like more than Harleys is riding motorcycles. And if you actually enjoy riding motorcycles, I mean, come on. Like, the thing stops on a dime, it handles, it's got a ton of power, it looks cool. Like, it can't be beat. Let's be honest. You know what I mean? It's got an old school look, but new schoolish technology. It's still carbureted. So you have that. It's just, to me, this is sort of like, man, really, my heart is in it with these things. I absolutely love them. So if you're at all familiar with these bikes, you're probably wondering why this is different. Well, if you're familiar with them, ZRX1200s are 5-speed bottom ends. Common thing is to use the bottom end from a ZZR 1200, which was more of a concourse sport bike. So this is actually a ZZR 1200 bottom end. So it has a 6-speed gearbox. It has a lightened flywheel. It has a different clutch. So we started with that. Or I didn't start with that. The bike has that. Big bore kit inside. So I believe it is a 1260, 1280 now. It has Yoshi camshafts in it. It has ported heads. All the valvetrain springs and all that stuff that goes with that is already done. Coil packs up here. What else we got? Of course, FCRs. If you don't have FCRs on these things, you're missing the boat. They have velocity stacks under the filters, obviously. But yeah, main power plant is 1200 big bore ZZR 1200 bottom end. So 6-speed bottom end, updated, everything done. Crankshaft, clutch, all that stuff's upgraded. So naturally you have a 4-into-1 full tie exhaust system, CR Racefit. What else can I say? One of the most commonly asked questions is, how does it sound? Amazing. What would one of these bikes be without Ohlins suspension? I mean, these are 43 mil conventional, made for this bike. These things are, up there with the best suspension that you can buy for any motorcycle. It's fully adjustable, tie nitrile coated gold, upgraded with all tie hardware, tie axles, you name it, it's done. And in the back, none other than the Ohlins piggybacks. They look the part, they work the part, everything. These are, again, probably some of the best suspension you can get your hands on. In the back, we have this Heat Magic Swingarm from Japan. This thing is super beefy, extra stiff. Of course, everywhere we got tie hardware in the shocks, tie hardware here. We've got rear sets from Japan. And, the wheels alone, Marchesini Racing, forged wheels. These things, not only do they look badass, but these things are way lighter than stock. Think about how much weight you're saving, unsprung weight on just the wheels alone. This thing frees up all the horsepower that the engine makes. Renthal sprocket, again, tie everywhere on this thing, everywhere you look. We got upgraded hoses and oil lines and stuff on the bike. CSG frame sliders here, upgraded to a better cooling, but also a smaller, better looking aluminum radiator with tie brackets from ELS, expensive lightweight shit. Samco hoses. Look at the stopping power. We got forged Brembo monoblocks on Brembo T-slot rotors. These things, everyone says, oh, be careful with the front brakes, you'll flip over the handlebars. You will. These things stop like crazy. The guy even made an aluminum fairing bracket to save a little bit of weight in the front. This is a full carbon fairing, painted to match, obviously. So going left to right on the handlebar setup, obviously bar end mirrors that you can see, Renthal grips, Brembo RCS19 clutch, adjustable. These things are super badass. Renthal bars with a Scott's top clamp and Scott's steering stabilizer. These things are, man, when you're at high speed, being able to crank this down is super, super nice. Check this out, crazy titanium key, especially made for this. Cycle Pirates quarter turn throttle, like you don't need, it doesn't need it at all, but this thing is a handful. And again, the radial RCS 19 Brembo on there is just, it can't be beat. So, basically you get the gist of this thing. It's worked. The paint, who doesn't like Kawasaki green? It's like, you know, all the ZRX freaks, they all have their favorite color. Some guys like the blue, some guys like the black. I mean, the green, I would say though, is hands down what makes a Kawasaki a Kawasaki. Yeah, I mean, you know, plans for this bike, I do plan on doing a custom seat. This is the stock seat, which like doesn't give you any kind of support or traction or grip, anything. So that's actually in the works. I don't know when I'll have time to do it, but it's going to happen. You know, it's already got knee pads and a carbon tank protector and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, the only thing left to do on this thing is just get on it and take it for a ride.